Hello, my brothers and sisters in Christ. It is Sharon, and I am back with you on how I study and understand my Bible. I'm alone in my room. I pray, and my heart and my mind is open to receive the teaching that God has taught me and is teaching me, because studying the Bible, it is an ongoing process. It's something that never ever ends, which is a good thing. But anyway, let's be about God's business. And I like to start with my observations here. And my observations is Judas, he delivers Christ to the troops, or he brings the troops to where Christ is with his disciples. Then another thing I see is Jesus just surrenders. It's no big to do or anything like that. He surrenders to them. And then I see the protection of his disciple. He protects his disciples. He boldly speaks to these young men. And then I also see Peter's zeal, and I see his fear. I just saw those back to back with each other. That's just a few observations that I have made, and I am sure that you have quite a few more than I have, which is absolutely wonderful. Anyway, let's just go ahead and get about God's business, and starting with verses 1 through 11, Jesus' betrayal and his arrest. And the betrayal, is Judas. Once was a disciple, let the Satan take over him, and now he working with the Pharisees, and he the one that's bringing the troops to the garden where Jesus is with his disciples, and betraying Jesus. And yep, that's him right there. And so then we see that where Jesus, in verse 4 here, it says him knowing, therefore he knowing all things that would come upon him, went forward and said to them, whom do you seek? And he just point blank at who you looking for. And so then they tell him, they said, we're looking for Jesus. And Jesus says, I am. And they were like kind of stunned right there. They were just kind of stunned. And so he asked him again, who you looking for? And Jesus and the troops says, Jesus. And Jesus says, I am. Here I am, right here in front of you. And so with this one, the troops, they fall back. They stumbled away. It says they fell to the ground. Now the commentators here, this is just some speculation. We're not sure exactly what was going on with them, why they did this. But anyways, one commentator says that they were surprised that the man that they was looking for was so easily, he easily surrendered. I mean, he wasn't no big fight or anything. And they probably was told, this man is notorious. He's a psychotic killer. He's evil, full of evil, got demons and stuff in him. That's just a speculation as why they may have fallen away. And then another is because that they was just shocked at how easily Jesus just said, I am, here I am, no problem, I'll come with you. And then the third one is that they may have heard about all the miracles and healings and all this stuff that Jesus done, and they were afraid of him. And that was just another view of it, that they could have been afraid of him. They may have heard about how when he spoke to that olive tree, when that olive tree was not producing any fruit, and he just told them, you're gonna wither away. And that's what it did. That next day it was dead. So they could have heard that and could have been afraid of that. We don't know. This is just all speculation. But anyway, moving on to verse 8 here. And Jesus, he was answering them, and he just said, I am the one that you're seeking. And he says, let the others go. Just let these disciples go. That was Jesus defending, protecting the disciples. And of course, Simon Peter, as always, he acts and he speaks before he thinks, and he raises up and slices the guy's ear off, just chops it off, and thinking that he's protecting Jesus. And Jesus like, well, no, Simon, we're not going to do that. In verse 11 here, Jesus says to Peter, put your sword into your sheath. Shall I not drink the cup which my Father has given me? And the word cup there in Old Testament, it always refers to suffering. And this whole thing was planned out about 4,000 years before this ever happened in Genesis 3:15. That was way at the beginning in the garden, right up the, they got kicked out of the garden. God said, I'll put enmity between your seed and her seed. He's talking about this, and it just took, like I said, 3,000 to 4,000 years to happen here. But to move right along here are verses 12 through 14, where we see Jesus is brought before the high priest. Now, this will be the first of 2 trials for him. And, it's after hours, probably about midnight, 1, 2 o'clock in the morning, which, that was illegal for the priests to do this, the Pharisees to do this to Jesus, because you have trials, normal business hours. But anyway, they was rushing this, we got him, and we got to get rid of him. That was their intent. And so they took him over to Anna's house, who was the father-in-law of Caiaphas, and he is the high priest here. And so now, just to verse 14 here is the fulfillment of what Caiaphas spoke in John chapter 11 verses 49 through 50, where he said, now it was Caiaphas who had advised the Jews that it was expedient that one man should die for the people. And that was he spoke that in John chapter 11 verses 49 through 50. So this is a scripture being fulfilled right here. And Jesus knew all about that. He was just like, okay, yeah, let's move right on along here. And in verses 15 through 18, we come across Peter's denials. And, it says, Simon Peter followed Jesus, so did another disciple. Well, this other disciple is not named in this book, but the commentators are saying this is John, because this is typical of John, not naming himself. John has so much love, respect, and humbleness towards Christ. He don't even say, I did this, like we like to do. I did this, so she did that, and he just like that disciple that he loved, that disciple, the other disciple, and stuff. So this is how we are coming to the conclusion this is John, because this is typical of John. And John goes in, Peter stays out in the outer gate. In the young girl that was the gatekeeper, gate tender, doorkeeper, whatever, she recognizes Peter, and she says to him in verse 17, you are not also one of this man's disciples, are you? That's kind of a much, for my brain to process. So to translate it, she's just saying, aren't you one of his disciples? And then Peter says, no. That is the first denial. And so then Peter went over and he stands by the fire, and now he getting warmed and all this stuff. And so in verse 20 here, we see they ask him that again. He spoke openly in the world and always, not verse 20. That's Jesus before, I guess, Caiaphas before him. And, he's just telling Caiaphas and the priest, that he's spoken openly. He spoke openly in the world. He did nothing secret. He spoke in the synagogues and in the temples. And he said, and I have said nothing in secret. So why do you ask me? Why don't you go and ask the ones that heard me? They are my witnesses. Of course, none of them was in there. Only the high priest. And so then we just move on down here to it's in verse 22 where that soldier or one of the officers, it says he strikes Jesus because he feels that Jesus was out of line talking to the high priest like that. And Jesus like, well, why did you hit me? Did I do some evil? If so, show this evil to me, prove this evil to me. But if I did no evil, why did you hit me? Again, no answer, could not explain. And that then it moves on to into verse 25 here, where Peter was sitting outside, and he stood by the fire with the rest of the people trying to get warm and keep warm. And then one of them says, you are not also one of his disciples, are you? Are you one of his disciples? And second denial is Peter says, no, I am not. And it's an exclamation point behind this. And so he was really emphatic about it and said, no, I'm not one of them. I don't know what you're talking about. And then verse 26, it goes, one of the servants of the high priest, a relative of him whose ear Peter cut off, said, did I not see you in the garden with him? And again, Peter says, I am not. I'm not. You did not see me there. I am not with him. That was the third denial. And so then the rooster crows. Another prophecy fulfilled in John chapter 13, verse 38, when Jesus said, you will deny me 3 times before the cock crows. And here, in verses 20, let's see, verse 28 through, let me make sure I get this right. Okay, yes. Verses 19 through 27 here, I done lost my spot. Okay, but anyway, we're going to, that was his first trial. So now we're in verses, 28 through 40, which I found my place. Forgive me, y'all. I just get ahead of myself and sometimes get a little too excited. But anyway, this is his second trial, and this is with Pilate. And, Pilate really don't want to be bothered with the Jews or with Jesus. And so he's like asking the Jews, what's your accusation against this man? And they evade the question. They don't answer the question. They just insist that he needs to be killed. What their answer was we cannot put to death anyone before the Passover. And so we know that's not true, but that's a whole nother teaching lesson on that. But they wanted him crucified. They could stone him, but they wanted him crucified, wanted him killed in the worst way. And so, then you have, Pilate talks to Jesus, and just ask him this in verses 33 through 38. He says, are you the king of the Jews? And Jesus answered the question, did they put you up to this? Are you asking on your own and stuff? And so Pilate didn't answer him. So Jesus says, well, I'm not of this world. Your world is not my kingdom. But yes, I am. And so in verses 38, Jesus Christ, Pilate is asking him, well, what is truth? Because Jesus had mentioned in verse 37, everyone who is of the truth hears my voice. And that's basically he's saying, everybody that heard me knows the truth. And this is the truth, And, Pilate, again, didn't want anything to do with it. And he just goes out to the priest out there, the Pharisees, and tell them, I don't find anything wrong with this man. And then to stop chaos, uproar, he says, hey, don't you guys have a tradition where you release a prisoner at Passover? And they was like, well, we want Barabbas. That's who we want. Barabbas is a robber, and some of the commentators say he's a insurrectionist, a terrorist, guerrilla warfare, you name it, he did it. But this is what they are choosing over Christ. And so you will know or find out the rest of the story when I start chapter 19 here. But this brings my study to the end, because the Jews is choosing Barabbas over Jesus. But anyway, like I say, this ends my study, and I hope you had enjoyed it just as much as I did, and you have a blessed and wonderful day, and I will see you next time. Be blessed.